It's pretty important to us, and it's not about different markets per se that much for us. We are largely in India, GCC, and some of the other Southeast Asian markets. But largely from a perspective that where do we put our price nudges and what is the kind of consumer who's coming on our funnel varies a lot. It could be a budget consumer, it could be an aspirational upper middle class, or it could be an HNI. So basis that, what kind of pricing nudges come in is important. It's not always a deal which we go after. Sometimes it could be a no cost EMI. For example, if someone wants to break down the entire payment into smaller parts, and instead of making the entire payment, we put a nudge like that. Sometimes it could be a value add, in terms of a super luxury room, let's say, which is out there for booking, which could have features like complimentary breakfast, teas, and an executive lounge all to yourself and stuff like that. So pricing nudges are largely basis which consumer cohort is coming on the app. It's quite commonsensical actually that if you offer value to consumers and you do it consistently over time, that starts registering in their minds and it becomes a perception on the brand. Right, so that is why it's very, very important to us. What we've seen is that we have a good LTV as well as repeat rate with consumers who convert better. So it's not a selection bias actually. It's more that when a consumer finds value, comes again and again, the repeat rates, the transaction values, LTVs, everything goes up. For example, MMT Black is a loyalty program of MakeMyTrip, where we offer higher benefits to consumers who've been much more loyal and who've repeated on the platform much more often. And what we've seen is that generally the MMT Black consumer will have a better LTV ratio versus LTV by CAC ratio versus any other consumer. So let's say if I'm acquiring two consumers at the same price point, over time the MMT Black consumer, because it comes into that loyalty fold, starts giving more transactions, more value per transaction, and hence improves our overall unit eco for that consumer per se. Travel would be an advanced purchase, like it is in much of the Western countries, right, where people take a week off in January and they do all the bookings. And I remember when I used to work globally, one of the things in the corporate culture used to be to book the entire year's travel in January. However, in India, it doesn't happen that way. People generally book very last minute. And counterintuitively, is the budget consumer who books even more last minute. And one of the thoughts could be that, the price point is so low that it really doesn't matter. If you're booking a luxurious hotel, the variability of discount is so high that you want to put in that extra effort of booking it in slight advance. But at least in the budget consumer segment, what we see is that consumers book last minute a lot, even if they are looking for deals and discounts, and they would want the best price at the last minute, but they would not do that booking earlier in advance. So that is something which is counterintuitive. Also comes from the need state that sometimes plans are very impromptu. A friend get together, let's say, it's happening at the very last moment, or a business trip. So these kind of use cases are last minute by nature. So that's quite counterintuitive. Yeah, I mean, it's mostly the benefits, which consumers seek. It's also that we've also revamped the entire funnel experience for a premium consumer. What a premium loyal MMT Black consumer sees on the app is very different from a non-black user, from a consumer which is coming in for the first time. So how the app personalizes itself basis various consumer cohorts, that varies a lot. From a particular feature standpoint, it's more about the silent nudges which come often on the listing page when someone goes and books a hotel, for example. That's what makes all the difference. I think it's largely the brand strength. I mean, the platforms are out there for usage for everyone. All brands can equally use the platforms as they feel like. For example, a Google or a Facebook or a Snapchat or a Twitter, everybody can use those platforms to advertise their brand. But it's just what's there in the consumer's mind, which is something very difficult to foresee. For a new player coming into India, or for an existing player as well. Just that might of being a first mover is something which is difficult to replicate, and that's why they say that disrupt industries early, and that's what MMT's biggest advantage continues to be. Yeah, of course. I mean, for any company, or you can call it a mobile app, a geographical advantage of starting off somewhere would always be there, because you get to know your suppliers, you get to know the market, and you have a learning curve which is much more advanced. So that of course plays out, and I think also over time, seeing that entire journey of web to app, and now with AI coming in, when the org has seen so many transitions and so many crests and troughs, it has built its own agility and perseverance. So I think that is something very difficult to put in numbers, but it's something which one sees through when you work in the organization closely. There are a couple of things. One is that how information is displayed and what information comes first, what comes later, and in what form does it come. All these nuances start playing out because today's consumer is very strapped on attention, right? And also the cognitive load has to be so low that the consumer has a very frictionless journey from start to end. So across the touch points, how the right information comes at the right time and in the right measure is something which is very, very important. Other than that, of course, the final pricing does play a big role in the final conversion happening, but these are the small micro movements that add up to that equation. I think brand lift is more a mind measure, I would say. From a feature perspective, I think there are a lot of features which we launched. For example, in flights, there's a feature called price lock, where you can lock your prices in advance for an upcoming trip. Trains is a big market in India, and one of the things which happens is a lot of last minute booking happens on trains as well. While planning starts earlier, there's a lot of wait list which happens on trains because there's always a supply crunch, right? So for that, we launched a feature where using machine learning, we find out which routes can give consumers the best advantage for booking, where you can be assured that the trip will not get cancelled or the train will not be waitlisted. So that feature is done very well, and we call it trip guarantee, for instance. And there are many such features which are built across line of businesses, which give us a lot of advantage. What we do is that we understand the platform. While the ads look the same, one has to understand that the platforms are inherently different. Like on Instagram, people are coming there after their heavy days of work, or they're scrolling middle work as well, for a relaxed time. They don't want to see a heavy duty ad out there. How can we be part of their relaxation from an advertisement perspective and give them that visual delight from an ad perspective, or the piece of entertainment, or content which really uplifts their mind and mood? Typically, Instagram is a mood uplifter. So is our ad uplifting the mood of a consumer? That is what plays a very important role when it comes to Instagram, for example, where Google is a search platform. So we operate it very differently versus a YouTube versus a Twitter. So all these platforms have their own grammar. So when we start making advertisement or communication, we make it platform friendly. That is our Uber motto. Rest everything falls in place. So I think that's slightly easier for both MakeMyTrip and Goibibo, which are our key brands. And the reason being that we have some IPs built in consumers' mind, whether it is the bold, energetic vibe of Goibibo, or it's the brand ambassadors of MakeMyTrip, which have been consistent for a very long time. So we enjoy a very good recall from a consumer perspective. So when we tweak the language slightly to match Varnak, those are the things which remain consistent. So that is something which we do from time to time to ensure that brand consistency is there. And the consistent element across vernacular creatives is something which is agnostic to that market. I think Netflix does that really well. I think it engages with a lot of nudges, for example, like last watched or top 10, and it understands that consumers are looking for mental shortcuts, and I think Netflix does that really well.